This video is going to be about the origin of the moon, formation of the planets, also a little about Jupiter and what almost was with regard to the history of our solar system. And I'm going to have to do it in two parts because the video turned out to be a lot longer than I expected it to be. I normally try to keep the videos between 3 and 4 minutes. This one is close to 8, so it just makes sense to have it posted as two separate videos. But first, I'm going to go into the origin of the moon. Like, where did it actually come from? Where it came from has always been, something that I've been interested in. Right now, the leading theory basically says that the moon formed after an object about the size of Mars collided with the Earth and knocked a chunk off. Basically, let's go backwards, okay? At the beginning of the solar system, there was a nebula, a cloud of hydrogen, and there was some helium in there, and maybe lithium, and some heavier elements like iron and the stuff that the rocky planets are made of. This cloud collapsed. Now, like, all the lighter elements fell in towards the center and became part of the star, and the fusion process started once the heat and pressure was intense enough. But the heavier elements stayed out there a little further out, and those objects ended up becoming planetesimals. There's just a whole shitload of basically asteroids floating around, and eventually these so-called asteroids will do gravitational attraction to each other and collisions over the course of time. Some of them get larger. Once they get massive enough, they start forming a spherical shape. That's how the planets are formed. Now, there's a sort of natural selection process among the objects in the solar system, because at one point when the solar system was really crowded at the very beginning, these objects are colliding with each other, and little by little the area is getting cleared out, and 8 planets survived, and a whole bunch of other things that we don't actually call planets, but still similar type objects. Now we have the more successful objects, but before we were left with the more successful objects, the remaining planets, there was another object that was about the size of Mars, and they've retroactively named it Morpheus. And Morpheus was about the same mass as Mars, and Mars is about half the size of the Earth. An object half the size of the Earth comes careening inward, but it doesn't collide with it head on. It clips the side and knocks a chunk off, and then goes barreling back out into space. But now it's trapped by the Earth's gravity, so it ends up locked into orbit. The debris that got knocked off the Earth would have formed a sort of ring, and eventually all the debris would have condensed back out into what would have eventually became the moon. The observable data is pretty consistent with that theory. So there's a pretty good chance that that's how it happened. Our moon is especially large when compared to the rest of the solar system's moons relative to the size of the planet. The Earth isn't a very large planet at all, but the moon is 25% the size of the Earth, and I think 1/3 the mass. I mean, it's pretty large. That's because there's a good chance that it was actually a planet. It's a binary planetary system, just like a binary star system is a system where there's 2 stars. And that is where I segue into Jupiter.